So as you said, I'm Liam. My wife and I planted a church at Lake Macquarie, just below Newcastle, about 8 years ago. So that's a big step. So we're a relatively new church. We've grown steadily over that time. At the moment, we're seeing about 100 adults and kids on a Sunday, and that's as big as we've been. So that's when we think mission in a small church. That's been our context, from 9 people when we kicked off to kind of 100 on a Sunday now. So that's where we've come from. And today, so as Mike said, I've got a couple of thoughts. There's so much to do, so many things we could be talking about. And really, this is just some of what I've learned, some of my experience. There's probably better ways to do it, but hopefully what we've got is helpful. And as Mike said, there is a question time, so we're going to do just that. I'll do about 10 minutes, and then we will stop for a good chunk of Q&A. You can get those questions in as we're going by typing them in, and Mike will pick those up and we'll feed those back in question time. So please, that discussion I think is probably going to be where it's most helpful. But of all the things we could be talking about mission, the two things I really want to dig into is, I reckon the two thoughts that are going to be most helpful are, the first one is that we should be pastoring our people in mission, shepherding them to do mission and helping them to do that. And I'll do that in the first chunk. And then we'll be looking at sort of events, so which I'd say is providing intentional opportunities to move people towards faith. And that's in a context. So we've never run a Summerfest big whiz bang holiday program. Maybe we couldn't. Maybe we just didn't want to. We're not big enough to run back-to-back mission courses. So that's the question. What can I do? And I think those two big things are what we can do. So the first one, pastoring your people in mission, it kind of shouldn't have to be said, but it does. Is people, they really need help. We all do. Some people are born evangelists. There's those odd people that we come off from time to time where they just can't help. We've got one of the guys at church. His conversations in Bunnings with the Bunnings staff blow my mind, but we've got one of them and they're not going to come along every day. Most of our people need help. And we know that biblically, don't we? That we do, God does give some specially to be evangelists, yet the whole church is called to be on mission. That Ephesians 4, that the evangelist, one of their job is to build the whole church up, not to do the evangelism, but to build the whole church up. And so that means, I don't want to, well, for us, we don't want to play off relational evangelism against event evangelism. You might have heard the sort of debates, are we into relational, are we into event evangelism? Well, look, I think we need both. So especially relational, we need to invest in our people, so it's not the church does the mission sort of attitude amongst the congregation. We've got to train our people to be the missionaries. They're in the area, they're in the workforce, they're in the schools. So we need to build and invest them to be building relationships, to be investing in the community. But we also need to be building them to be able to both share the gospel and bring people to an event, I believe, where they can, their friend, their colleague, their family member can hear the gospel explained. Some people will be able to be trained to share the gospel in such a way that will lead to conversions. A bunch of people can get that. There's some good training courses out there. But I think we need to recognise there'll be a lot of people who might never get there. And we've got to embrace that Jesus says, hey, our church is a body. We're not all ears, we're not all mouths, we don't all have the same gift. And so to put that kind of pressure on everyone in our congregation that you need to be able to convert someone in a conversation, I actually think it's a little bit unfair. So not everyone might be able to be brought to that place, but I do believe that we can pastor pretty well everyone in our congregation to be a good friend and a good inviter. So that's kind of the sort of heart of it. Now, when it comes to how do you train people to do that, we run some courses through home groups to do that. One that we've sort of written around some of Sam Chan's material. You might have come across him. He does a bunch of stuff with Geneva Push. He works for City Bible Forum here in Sydney. But he's got a great new book called How to Talk About Jesus Without Being That Guy. We've got an adaptation of that book that we run as a 5-week course, which we call Unawkwarding Jesus. which is really just to help people start talking about Jesus, building relationships to a point where they can start talking about faith and getting to the point where they can bring someone along to an event or to church. But I don't think we should just assume that that's going to happen. Not everyone, it doesn't come naturally to everyone to just drop faith, to drop Jesus straight into a conversation. So in the Sam Chen content we run it, we look at merging universes, about introducing your Christian friends to your non-Christian friends. Something as simple as saying, hey, if you're going to go to the movies with your Christian mates, why not invite a few of your non-Christian friends along, and vice versa. And that's actually been surprisingly quite revolutionary for a bunch of our people. It should seem obvious to do social stuff with our Christian and non-Christian friends together. But until it's said, I think a lot of people go, oh, wow, that actually is really simple. Just the last time we ran it, we had a lady say, I've always been terrified of evangelism. When the pastor sort of points at me and say, you've got to evangelise, like she sort of shrink into a seat, but she's like, oh, look, after this, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can have coffee with people. I can be a good friend. I can invest in people and invite them along to something. Yeah, I can have a crack at that. So thoroughly recommend that book. And if you're in this Learning Lab, send an email in if you want access to that little course that we run. It's not fancy. I'll make sure you get emailed a PDF for that one as well. So that's the first thing to be, I think, pastoring your people, shepherding them to be doing mission, is to training them. The next bit is to be building a selfless culture. And just to, I guess, give an example of this, we've had both these. So real examples. We ran a mission event, which was Jamberry Nails, which is like a stick-on-nail thing for the ladies. And it was really popular, but from that event, we had one lady who said to me, oh no, I got my nails done last month, so I won't be coming or bringing anyone. And I reckon that really, it really crystallises what would we say, a selfish culture around mission, where a whole bunch of people don't have clarity on what these events are for. They're not actually about you. They're not about your nails. They're about your friend. This isn't about you having a nice time, although we want that. This is about something that your friend might be interested in. And I want to compare that to another lady from our church who's a vegetarian, and she brought 4 friends to our smoked meat night about a month ago. So just that's the poll. She gets it. She gets, oh yeah, this actually isn't about me. This is about what my friends might be interested in. And we say that. So how do you build that culture? I think you've just got to keep saying it. Say it. So when we're up announcing our events, even in the way we do announcements at church, we don't give many of the details from front, just the sort of bare bones. My upfront time is where I can cast vision with that announcement and say, hey, yeah, we're running this meat event. I want to tell you why we're doing it. This one that we just ran a couple of months ago, I said, I actually don't care if you like meat or not. And I called out that lady, I know she's already bringing some friends along. This isn't about whether you like smoked meat. This is about your friends and whether they want to come along. And showing that, hey, this is about us flexing, us changing, us putting aside our preferences for the sake of the outsider, that they might be more easily able to come and experience the Christian community and hear the good news of Jesus. So that's the second one, building a selfless culture. And the third one, and I reckon, we'll come back to this at the end, because I think if you do nothing else off the back of this, I'd encourage you to do this, and that is coach your people. Now this is actually a big advantage in a smaller church. If you've got a larger church and you're thinking, well, how do I build a missional culture? That's a big ship to turn. If you've got a smaller church, either you or someone in your church can basically get around it. And so what I mean is coach, I mean deliberately invest in every one of your people with an eye to mission. So I do this at the moment. I don't do it brilliantly. I don't do it all the time, so it's sporadic. But when it does happen, it seems to work really well. And what I've got is, it's pretty simple. I've got a Google Sheet, and I've got a list of all the different, all the people in our congregation, our regulars, with their name. Next to them, I've got a list of all the friends that I know that they're praying for, that they've brought along to an event, or that they're interested in inviting to something. And I work through that list. And I'll ring them. And it actually doesn't take too much time. It's not a general call or how you going, tell me all your problems. I flag it right at the start. Hey, I'm calling about mission, about your friends and how we can support you. And so here's a real conversation I had not that long ago with one of our older ladies named Carol. Called her up. Hey Carol, how you going? I know you were, because I had written down her friend, let's call her Shirley. I noticed you brought Shirley along to something about a year ago. How did she enjoy it? Have a little chat. How have you been catching up with her since then? Oh yeah, you have been catching up with her. Oh, okay, that's great. What do you think the next step for Shirley is? So it's doing that coaching. What do you think the next step for Shirley is? And she goes, and I don't think she's ready for church yet. Oh, okay, that's really interesting, Carol. What might she be ready for? And she'll sort of go, I say, what about the life course we've got running up, or the next evangelistic course? Real example. And she went, you know what? I think I could invite her to that. And I went, oh, great. Okay, can I pray with you, Carol? Yeah, that'd be wonderful. So we prayed. She called me back literally 5 minutes later, telling me that she'd rung a friend, invited her to life, and she'd said yes. And that wasn't a one-off. That happened again and again and again. And it's amazing when I said, hey, mate, how you going? What about this friend? And I named them. They came along to something. Hey, we've got that thing we've been advertising. It's coming up in a few weeks. Have you invited them? Oh, no, I hadn't. Oh, any reason why not? Oh, I just hadn't thought of it. Oh, okay. We've announced it from the front like 40 times. But no, that personal coaching. Oh, could you invite them? Yeah, I think I could. And work through it. So I reckon that's the big one. Always pray with them. Always help them think through a next step. And push them to say, hey, well, what do you think's next for that friend? How can you be investing in them?